What about Kirtan?
I'm just about to start.
All right.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Hare
Sai Om Vishnupad Purnamamsa Padipad Jagacharya Ashto Tarasati Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Namacharya Sridhar Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Navadip Dham ki jai, Jagannath Puri ki jai, Ganga Mai jai, Jamuna Mai ki jai, Tulsi Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol. Thank you, Maharaj, and thank you everyone for joining us for Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayādvaita Swami. It is Monday, November 28th, 2022 in New York, a day later in India, and we are reading in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam in the 10th chapter, starting tonight with verse number 12. And we're looking forward to hearing your comments, questions. Just when you're typing a chat question, take care to only post it if Maharaj is not reading in that window. It makes things so much easier. And if you'd like to lead tonight's closing kirtan, we hope that you will do so. And we're so happy you could join us, Maharaj. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Kendra Prabhu. Thank you to all. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vishvamvai Brahmatan Matram Sanstitam Vishnumaya Isharena Pradicchinnam Kalena Vyaktamurtina. This cosmic manifestation is separated from the Supreme Lord as material energy by means of Kala, which is the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Lord. It is situated as the objective manifestation of the Lord under the influence of the same material energy of Vishnu. Purport. As stated previously by Narada before Vyasadeva, Idam hi Vishvan Bhagavan Ivetaraha. This unmanifested world is the self-same personality of Godhead, but it appears to be something else beyond or besides the Lord. It appears so because of its being separated from the Lord by means of Kala. It is something like the tape-recorded voice of a person who is now separated from the voice. As the tape recording is situated on the tape, manifestation is situated on the material energy and appears separate by means of Kala. The material manifestation is therefore the objective manifestation of the Supreme Lord and exhibits his impersonal feature, so much adored by impersonalist philosophers. Om Ajnanatirmirandhasya Jnanjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Tadhati Shapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Shahagana Raganatan Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Pradijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Shahagana Lodita Sri Vishakhan Vitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanshakol Patavupyascha Kripa Sindho Pyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Vishvambhai Brahmatina, the mysterious nature of time, is being further described. Vishvam Vai Brahmatan Matram. The whole world, the whole is Vai, definitely Brahmatan Matram. Nothing other than the absolute truth or the supreme personality of Godhead. Idam hi Vishvam Bhagavan Vaita. Definitely, it's identical with the personality of Godhead. But Vishnu Maya, by the influence of Lord Vishnu's energy, it appears to be situated separately. It appears to be situated separately. Kalina, Avyaktamurtina, by the influence or arrangement of time. Srila Prabhupada gives the example that as one's voice is situated on a tape recording, so the personality of Godhead is situated separately in the form of the material cosmos. Avyaktamurtina. Maya tatam idam sarvam Shagadavyaktamurtina. In the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that I pervade this entire material world in the form of my Avyaktamurti, my unmanifest form. So here that unmanifest form is identified with Kala, or eternal time. There's nothing other than Krishna, the spiritual world, the spiritual energy. But by the influence of time, we appear to be situated differently. separately from the Supreme Lord. Actually, nothing separate from the Lord. But it appears to be separate by the influence of time. Okay. Any questions here? Comments? Yes, Kendra Prabhu.
Thank you, Maharaj. I was just thinking the way that Prabhupada uses the example of the tape recording here, it made me think of a verb that's usually used to describe when something is recorded on tape, and that is captured. So I was thinking how, the living entities and the Lord have their original home, spiritual reality, where, they're simply themselves. But for those who, falsely identify with the body, it's like they're captured in this this loop of tape that is, it's apparently separate. It's running on, but it's not the real lives of the inhabitants there.
This tape recording analogy invites other realizations. The captured endless loop. Yes, thank you. I don't know if you want to say anything about multi-track, but anyway, enough. Anything else? Yatedānim tatagre cha paschad apyeta idrisham. This cosmic manifestation is as it is now. It was the same in the past, and it will continue in the same way in the future. Purport. Before we go on to the purport, I see there's a comment by Murari. I've read that the material world is spirit covered by Maya. Yes, that's Ishrena Prichinam. I don't see it in front of me now. Yes, it's spirit covered by Maya. Covered means, from our point of view, the sky is not covered from the sun's point of view, but the clouds cover our vision. So by the Lord's energy in the form of time, this world appears to be material, appears to be separate. But actually it's nothing other than the Lord himself. Yes. Okay. Meena, did you?
Yes, thank you, Maharaj. I find it interesting that while Prabhupada is speaking this purport, he's speaking into a dictaphone, and he's recording what he's speaking. So how is that, how can we understand that in light of what he's saying? In other words, his speaking is different from what he's describing. He's speaking through a dictaphone.
Yeah, these are favorite examples of Prabhupada, the microphone, the tape recording or dictaphone, because so much of his time, all of his writing time essentially used these things. In another context, Prabhupada was talking about the separated energy of the Lord. And he gave this example of the tape recording. There's no difference between Prabhupada and Prabhupada sitting in his room and Prabhupada on tape. I'm going to listen to Prabhupada. So they're identical, and yet the tape is the separated form of Srila Prabhupada. The tape would be sent to Boston or New York when Prabhupada remained in Bombay or wherever he might be. So it was identical and yet separated. So the material cosmic manifestation is identical with the Lord and yet separated from the Lord. I hope that, I don't know if that makes anything clearer.
It helps a little bit, thank you.
Okay. Tulsi Priya? You're muted, it seems.
Maharaj, forgive me if you mentioned this and I missed it somehow because I tuned in a little bit late. But could we say that this separated energy would we say that this is does the idea of Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva only apply to the living entities, or can we use it to apply to the whole cosmic manifestation, Krishna, but not Krishna?
Yeah, Prabhupada uses it that way. Everything is identical with Krishna and yet different from Krishna.
Okay, thank you.
And Murari.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I hope you can hear me a little bit clearly.
I can.
Oh, good. Our preaching is very much based on a fundamental difference between spirit and matter, the living entity and the material world. So it's a little, how do we adjust that the material world is spiritual, but it's covered by, it's not a different substance, and yet our basic strategy is that there are two energies, a superior and an inferior, and until you start understanding that point, then spiritual life doesn't really begin.
Yes, that understanding should be there. There's material energy, spiritual energy, marginal energy. The marginal energy is wrongly looking to the material energy instead of toward the spiritual energy. These are our basic understandings. And yet, we're meant to have this understanding also. To see Krishna everywhere. What is that? Yomam Pashati Sarvatra Sarvam Chadmai Pashati. The Bhagavad Gita, for one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I'm never lost. He's never lost to me. So this understanding is also there. We need to understand the fundamental differences between the living entity and the material nature, between the material nature and the spiritual nature. And still, this oneness we need to understand as well, the identity of everything with the absolute truth, with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It doesn't change our basic philosophical proposition, as you mentioned it, but it gives us a higher understanding also. And that becomes significant in other ways. When we say that the material energy is actually Krishna's energy and becomes re-spiritualized. Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavir, Brahmagno, Brahmanahutam, Brahmaiva, Tena Gantavyam, Brahmakarma Samadhi. everything merges into transcendence when re-engaged in Krishna's service. Or Prabhupada said, talked about the re-spiritualization of human society, or the re-spiritualization of everything. It all happens with this understanding that ultimately everything is non-different from Krishna, at the same time that everything is distinct. Is that okay?
That's very helpful, Maharaj. But still, there's Krishna never touches matter. He transforms us into Lord Shiva in order to deal with the material. Why is that necessary if it's actually spirit?
From Krishna's point of view, it's not necessary. Krishna can handle it himself if he wants to. He's never contaminated, even if he's in touch with the material energy. Or from another point of view, material energy is not different from Krishna, and therefore Krishna is not going to be affected. For him, everything is spirit. But still, for administration, he divides it up, and he keeps his distance. The same thing, the sun keeps its distance from the darkness and from the clouds, even though the darkness and the clouds are products of the sun. Darkness because it's understood as the absence of light. So everything is, yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj. Can I just one more point? Prabhupada only mentions in a few places that matter is spirit covered by Maya, and a lot is this. Prabhupada speaks about the difference between spirit and matter, and the spiritual world, material world. And I'm wondering if that has anything to do with the tendency to slide into impersonalism by making it all one. And keeping the spirit and matter, it makes it much easier for us to appreciate our situation.
Yeah. With just a vague understanding that everything is one. Prabhupada says everything is one in darkness. When the lights are off, everything's one. But when the lights are on, we see things distinctly. So by too much emphasis on oneness, we think that we're God. We think that since everything is spirit, then hashish is also spirit. My girlfriend is also completely spiritual. Everything is, liquor is spiritual. Maya is spiritual. So why should I not enjoy that spiritual Maya? So that tendency is there, and even sometimes like spiritual life. For the materialist, spiritual life means feeling good about yourself, being in tune with your feelings, having your body and mind and spirit all in alignment. It's all about enjoying material energy as though it were spiritual. So this understanding is needed to help us get free from this, from Maya, from illusion. But then this is also part of the understanding that it's an illusion to think that there's anything separate from Krishna. Tulsi Priya. Is that okay, Moran?
Thank you very much, Maharaj. That's very helpful.
Thank you, Murari Prabhu.
Maharaj, so you were bringing up various examples of, thinking that hashish is spiritual, my girlfriend is spiritual. But ultimately, yes, they are. But it seems that the issue then is not that the girlfriend is spiritual or the hashish is spiritual, but our desire to enjoy is what contaminates the relationship with, and I'm not trying to argue that we should all be smoking hashish or, having illicit sex, but I guess I'm just saying that those things themselves may not be, they're not material in and of themselves. It's our attitude towards them, or our desire to enjoy them that makes them material.
Yeah, therefore everything is spiritual, sarva kalavidam brahma.
Right.
But we need to see the differences also.
Mm-hmm.
In Bhagavatam, we quoted this the other day, that fire means fire, smoke, wood, sparks. It's all fire. But if you think, well, I'll cook on the smoke, that's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Even though everything is one, it's all fire. There are distinctions also. You're not going to get the same benefit from the smoke that you're going to get from the flames.
It was making me wonder, though, like I'm trying to think of how many instances or examples of avadutas we have, presented to us in our philosophy and our shastra. And it doesn't seem like there's all that many, but it seems like an avadut is an example of someone who sees everything as spiritual, and so they act in ways that do not comport with social expectations, because they do see everything as spiritual, and so they act in contrary and in odd ways. Would you say that's true?
Yes, they see everything as spiritual, but that doesn't mean that they don't see distinctions also.
Mm-hmm.
Avadhutas are unconventional.
Mm-hmm.
They're not bound by ordinary laws of behavior, but they see distinctions that Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj was seeing, that these merchants are simply wasting their life in sense gratification. And then they come and they want to have me as their pet. So he wasn't thinking everything's the same as everything else. There was a practical understanding there. Is that okay?
Yeah, I was just thinking of maybe specific examples, like Vamsi Das Babaji, who I think was he used tobacco, or the pastime of Shukadev, passing naked in front of the girls who were swimming, and they didn't cover themselves up for him because they knew he wasn't seeing, they're swimming naked.
Yeah.
And all that.
They're beyond material dualities.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, same Sukadev Goswami is making vivid distinctions also
Mm-hmm.
in speaking Srimad Bhagavatam. So both things need to be taken into account.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tedanim tatagrecha paschadapyetadidrisham. This cosmic manifestation is as it is now. It was the same in the past, and it will continue in the same way in the future. Purport. For the perpetual manifestation, maintenance, and annihilation of the material world, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita. Prakriter Vishad, as it is created now and as it will be destroyed later on, so also it existed in the past, and again will be created, maintained, and destroyed in due course of time. Therefore, the systematic activities of the time factor are perpetual and eternal, and cannot be stated to be false. The manifestation is temporary and occasional, but it is not false as claimed by Mayavadi philosophers. The world is as it is now. As the world is now, so it was in the past, and so it will be in the future. So the Mayavadis say everything is temporary, and therefore everything is illusory, it's not real, it's false. No, time has its own system, time has its own markers, time continues on and on. So it's not false or non-existent, somehow not there. It's there, and it's been there, it will be there, it is now. We'll hear more about the divisions of time. It's real, but it imposes limits on the living entities. All right, anything else here? What's the difference? Kendra says, no, Kendra's posting text. Susi Priya, what's the difference between illusory and false? We use this word illusory in reference to the material energy all the time. I guess it's a dream also is real because it exists, but it has no substance in comparison to reality. Yes, I was just talking about this last night, I think, in another class, how we, many years, when I was even editing the Krishna book, where there was some discussion of this in the prayers by the personified Vedas, I found this perplexing because I thought that Prabhupada taught that everything here is false. Now he's saying it's not false, it's only temporary. So it took a while, but I think I've got it now, that it's real because it's Krishna's energy. It's working under Krishna's direction, but it's not what we think it is. You give the example, rightly so, of a dream. A dream isn't substantial, but it's not nothing. We're chased by a tiger in a dream and we wake up sweating. So something is there, but it's temporary, it's not substantial, but it's not nothing, it's a dream. That's something. The Prabhupada gives the example elsewhere of the oyster shell. It said, all that glitters is not gold. Someone sees an oyster shell and thinks it's gold. I guess divers can see gold where there's just an oyster shell. So the oyster shell is not gold, that's an illusion. But the oyster shell is not nothing, it's something, it's an oyster shell. And gold is something also. The typical example is the rope and the snake. Mayavadis use this example to show that everything is false. We're thinking that there's a snake. No, there's no snake, it's just a rope. So there's nothing, material existence is just an illusion. So Prabhupada points out that the rope is real. And the snake is also real, or you couldn't mistake a rope for it. But the rope is not the snake is not the rope. So these things are real in the sense of existing as part of the Supreme Lord's energy. But they're temporary. In that sense, illusory. Illusory, not what we think they are. But not nothing. Hope that's okay. Okay. Saraswati says, I may have touched on this before, but I am confused as to why there needs to be complete destruction of the material world and all conditioned souls are put to sleep for such a long time, because that constitutes zero opportunity to become rectified and reinstated as a pure soul. It cannot be because Krishna gets tired. There's no need. Things don't need to be exactly as they are. But that's Krishna's setup. He could have set it up a different way. There don't have to be 14 Manus in a day of Brahma. There doesn't have to be Brahma. Things don't have to be the way they are, but they are. They are. So that's why Krishna sets it up exactly the way he sets it up. That you'll have to ask him. But he sets it up in a particular way, according to his choosing, according to his purposes. Now, this is part of his arrangement. This bhutva pradite, creation and destruction, again and again. That helps. So is posted from the shadow of reality. In the shadow, there's no reality or substantiality. But from the shadow, we can understand that there are substance and reality. In the desert, there's no water, but the mirage suggests that there is such a thing as water. In the material world, there's no water, there's no happiness. The real water of actual happiness is there in the spiritual world. Yes, thank you for that. Anything further here? Okay. Sargo navavidhastasya prakrito vaikritastu yaha kala dravya gunairasya trividha pratisankramaha. There are 9 different kinds of creations besides the one which naturally occurs due to the interactions of the modes. There are 3 kinds of annihilations due to eternal time, the material elements, and the quality of one's work. Purport: the scheduled creations and annihilations take place in terms of the supreme will. There are other creations due to interactions of material elements which take place by the intelligence of Brahma. Later, these will be more explicitly explained. At present, only preliminary information is given. The 3 kinds of annihilations are: 1, due to the scheduled time of the annihilation of the entire universe. 2, due to a fire which emanates from the mouth of Ananta. And 3, due to one's qualitative actions and reactions. So as this chapter proceeds, we'll soon hear of the 9 different kinds of creations besides the original creation of the total material energy. The Prakrita and Vikrita will be discussed as in the course of things. Among these 9, some of them, 6 if I remember, some of them are creations by the Lord or natural creations, the creation of the senses and sense objects and so on. All of these things are the creation of material elements. These are natural creations, or they're the supply of the ingredients for the construction of the universe. And then that's called Prakrita. And then Vikrita are the creations by Brahma, what he does with the ingredients. Further elaboration. That's called Vikrita. So, yes, Dravya Gunai, Kala Dravya Gunai, Pratisankramaha. Okay, any questions here? Okay, and now we're going to, I think for the rest of the chapter, hear about these different creations. The chapter is called Divisions of the Creation, if I remember. And now we're going to hear about these successive creations. Adyastu mahata sargo guna vaishamyamatmanaha dutiyas taham dutiyas tramaho yatra dravya gana kriyodayaha. Of the 9 creations, the first one is the creation of the Mahatattva, or the sum total of the material ingredients, wherein the modes interact due to the presence of the Supreme Lord. In the second, the false ego is generated, in which the material ingredients, material knowledge, and material activities arise. Purport. The first emanation from the Supreme Lord for material creation is called the Mahatattva. The interaction of the material modes is the cause of false identification, or the sense that a living being is made of material elements. This false ego is the cause of identifying the body and mind with the soul proper. Material resources and the capacity and knowledge to work are all generated in the second term of creation after the Mahatattva. Jnana indicates the senses which are sources of knowledge and their controlling deities. Work entails the working organs and their controlling deities. All these are generated in the second creation. So first we have the Mahatattva, then we have the ahamkar, false ego. And we've covered this before in the second canto and third canto in the Sankhya description of the appearance of the material elements. You might recall there was a chart. I did one, and Gopal Hari did another one in his book, showing how these elements expand from the false ego. So the sources of knowledge, the senses, the knowledge-gathering senses, the working senses, their controlling deities, and the material elements, all of these are generated in the second creation on account of the false ego. Tulsi Priya.
Thank you, Maharaj. I feel so dense that these concepts don't, or these explanations of these processes don't stick in my head the way they ought to. But I'm trying to understand if false ego is being described here as a principle of material nature. Because when I think of false ego, I think I have my false ego, somebody else has their false ego, but this seems to be an overarching kind of principle, that false ego itself. And I'm just wondering if false ego is something that exists as a, I don't even know the word to use, a principle, a concept, and every jiva taps into it. And that's...
Yeah, the false ego is not just mine,
Mhm.
but there's a principle of false ego, not just a concept, because it's substantial. Things come from the false ego.
Mhm.
But the description is that the whole cosmic manifestation is elaborated from false ego. If we didn't have false ego, we wouldn't have a material world. Before the jiva becomes active, in fact, this false ego is there as a principle.
Okay, but there are so many of us in the material world, and before, you said before the jiva is even active, the false ego is there. So then my question is, whose ego is the falsity? You know, who there's the real ego and then there's the false ego, but whose ego is this false ego of?
Well, it's like a trap. Even before you fall into it, it's there.
Mm.
So the false ego it's an energy of Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? Bhumirapo nalo vayu kamano buddhirevacha ahankaratiyam me binna prakritirashti. The living entity, we have in our bodies earth and water and air and fire and so on. But those things exist also apart from our bodies. It's not that when I die, earth ceases to exist or water ceases to exist. So there are principles in which we become, with which we become related. So the false ego, ahankar, is an energy of Krishna, and the living entities, of course, have they're already, what's the word, inclined to think in this way. So in one sense, the false ego is appearing on account of, and that's indicated also in the earlier description, on account of the past history of the living entities, on account of our rebellious nature. Otherwise, there's no need of false ego or the sense objects or the senses or any of this. This is all expanded by the Lord in response to our materialistic mentality. There's a question by Murari, I'm told, so let me find it. Truth is so complicated, nuanced, and subtle. It's a wonder that someone like Srila Prabhupada, who understood all of it, would attempt to teach those who know nothing. Yes, thank you for that. Saraswati says, does the false ego principle act like live mind ego on the conditioned souls? Hive
mind. I think she's saying hive mind, Maharaj.
Like hive mind? Hive. That doesn't seem like the intended word. Saraswati, what do you intend here?
Hare Krishna, I meant like a central controlling unit and everyone taps into it. Like when they talk about hive mind, it's this conformity, but there's this controlling central entity. And then, so everybody's thoughts and actions kind of conform to what this controlling unit dictates. Like a hive mind.
I see. I wasn't familiar with the term. I'm not familiar with hive mind, but yes, it's a principle in which just as the just as the senses are the sense objects, and these are like basic constituents of material nature. There's earth, there's water, there's fire, there's mind, there's intelligence, and there's ego. Then I come into material nature and I'm assigned, as it were, okay, you take this mind, you take this, the structure has to be there, the principles have to be there. Otherwise, I'm not going to get a body, I'm not going to get a mind, there's not going to be sense objects. So these things are all elaborated from the energy of the Lord, and then the living entity becomes involved with them on his own small level. The false ego as a principle is so great, the demigods expand from it, the senses expand from it, the sense objects expand from it. Nothing there is dependent on my own little embodiment and my own little false identification with America or Europe or anything. There's this large false ego. Someplace, I believe we read that there's the lotus bud was blue because of the sinful activities of the living entities. So there's this sort of cosmic dimension to determination of the conditioned souls to enjoy the material energy, to identify with it and to try to enjoy it. So there's this, what would you say, sort of collective situation. But the false ego as an element is not dependent on me for its existence. That if I choose something else, then false ego won't exist. It won't exist for me. I may not be involved with it anymore. Something like the prison system. Prison system is set up by the government with the understanding that there are going to be those who are going to be assigned to high security, low security, medium security facilities, as they call them, prisons. So these material ingredients of creation are there, and the living entities are assigned by Brahma particular bodies. We'll read about that also. We're assigned particular bodies by Lord Brahma according to our mentality. The ingredients are there already, supplied by the Lord. This is the definition of hive mind, a notional entity consisting of a large number of people who share their knowledge or opinions with one another, regarded as producing either uncritical conformity or collective intelligence. I say thank you for that. Well, okay. Good. We can stop here and have kirtan. Haridas, your kirtan Prabhu was so nice the other day. And so Haridas unmutes, and there's only one thing more to happen.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnuvad Paramansa Parivraj Acharya Shri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Raj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Thank you so much, Haridas Prabhu.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, beautiful. Thank you, Meena, and thank you all. Hare Krishna.
Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare
Hi,
Krishna.
Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna. And thank you, Haridas Prabhu.
Jai. Shraddha.
Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone for being here. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayādvaita Maharaj Ki Jai.
Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari
Hari
Bol.
Bol.